basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience.
The Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast is brought to you by Prizepicks.
Okay, the Celtics are done, but we're not. It's time for the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, tanguay along for the ride podcast right here on the CLNS Media Network. Show is brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. Prizepicks. Run your game. Okay, guys, here we go. I'm just going to open up the floor. We got a lot to break down. Bob, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the Celtics getting bounced in 6?
The Game 5 is a separate entity. The series was lost in Games 1 and 2. And then, of course, we had the Tatum thing that changed the dynamics and has far-reaching long-range effects. We're going to obviously talk about that. 1 and 2 are inexcusable to lose the 2 20-point leads the way they did. And, whether you want to say that Joe Mazzulla has to answer for it or the players have to answer for it or somebody has to answer for it. But what they did was unprecedented.
Everybody has to answer for it, Bob. Everybody has to answer for it, right?
What they did was, we're not being hyperbolic here, historic. No team has ever done that. No team has ever had 4 20-point leads and lost 3 of them. And in the history of the playoffs, ever. And you go back to 1947. So they set some negative history here. They're going to have to live with this. And had Tatum stayed healthy, we don't know. You'd like to think they would have won, but in that game, it wasn't going to change that game. They were down 9 when he got hurt. So forget about that game. They were still going to lose, and they would have been down 3-1 without him, and it would have had the same daunting comeback possibilities. But anyway, Game 5 was, it was all the worst things that can happen when you can't make your threes and you can't defend either. I mean, it was awful. Let the record show it was tied at 16, and we had no indication really which way the game was going to go. They both were shooting poorly. It was 16 all. And then, well, the numbers then get sick. But the final run was, there was a run of 58-32. There was a run of 42-16 after they were tied at 16. They got outscored. I'll repeat it again. 42-16. It was just horrible. And the last night was just an aberrational, awful game, and for them. And it's not important in itself as whether they lost by 1 or 101. The future is, affected by the injury to Tatum. Period. Greatly affected. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the craziest part of this, right? Like within a few minutes, everything changed. Everything changed, right? I mean, they went, like you said, they were down, I think, 7 when Jaylen Brown had that turnover. And then Tatum obviously tears his Achilles.
Right.
And you still have a chance in that game. At that point, you're thinking, all right, we come down, we make a bucket, there's 3 minutes left. We still can win this game. And then, we got the series. And not only does the series go away, but, the shorter term future of the franchise is completely put in disarray right now. Getting back to this series and just watching this team and watching them through the playoffs, couple things. One, Jrue Holiday isn't the same player. He's just not the same player anymore. He's changed in a year. Porzingis and whatever he's going through completely changed his team too. Like a lot of factors weighed in, right? A lot of them weighed in and they all kind of happened at the same time. Not an excuse for the Celtics. Again, the Knicks were the better team. I'm happy as hell for Jalen Brunson and some of those guys that I knew well from their Villanova days. But Porzingis, if he's, and I know everybody pushed back and we'll all say that even, like he's never really healthy. But this one was different, right? This one was a different type. It wasn't an injury. This was an illness. And no offense, Bob, but he looked like you out there defensively and offensively. He was awful. He was unplayable to the point where I said, they needed to put somebody else in. Finally, they put in Luke Cornett for extended minutes, and it worked in Game 5. But ultimately, you had the Porzingis thing. You had Jrue Holiday. You had Jaylen Brown not playing well in the series. And Tatum wasn't very good in much of the series. So everything kind of happened at once. But the future, to me, the problem now is Drew Holiday isn't Drew Holiday. Porzingis, you're scared as hell watching him, and his value is about as low as it could possibly be. So you have to now hope that, and I know we'll get into this in a minute, but like Derek White and Jaylen Brown can carry this team, and who knows who else is going to be with them.
Right. For those of you listening to the show, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. And for those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the Celtics All Access YouTube channel, where you can find our show and a lot of other great Celtics content.
And with regard to Porzingis, Towns smelled the blood and reacted last night particularly. He was on a rampage last night. Have you ever seen that Karl Anthony Towns before? That were rampaging and
No.
demanding himself to go to the basket and muscling people and no, he's been a finesse player and he still but he smelled the blood. There's so many positive ramifications for the Knicks that I saw come out of this thing, and that was certainly one of them. Is he going to play this way against somebody else? Well, we're going to find out. Is he going to play this way against Miles Turner? You know, if he does, look out, Miles. I don't know. You know, we'll see. But anyway, Porzingis, yeah. But you said his value is low. Yeah, you know, they're going. I don't know. They got to keep him. Hope he gets healthy. You know, I don't know. You're right. Well, and the guy holidays. People age at different rates. That's all. He got kind of old overnight. He's going to be 35, I believe, or if he isn't already. And so you have to realistically know you're going to have to replace him. The big question, we can get into all the specifics. Immediate question for 2025-26. How do you approach it? Do you pretend that you're still a contender? Do you try to do things that keep you in contention, or are you going to start the quote unquote I don't care what word you want to use, rebuild, reconstruction, turn the page and go in a new direction? Which one? That's the immediate question, because we know the biggest thing over that is the financial situation. And you know, and it's been exacerbated now by the fact that you're not even going to have Tatum next year. But point is, what do you do for 25-26? Do you punt, or what do you do?
Can I answer that, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead.
You rebuild, and Brad Stevens is going to start. He's done it before. He'll do it again. The fact that Drew Holiday helped the Celtics win a championship is remarkable. You guys hit the nail on the head. We could talk about some other things here, but the two keys were Porzingis and Holiday, because whenever you win an NBA championship, there's always that guy. With Golden State, it was Andre Iguodala. With the Celtics, it was Scott Wedman. There's always that other piece. You know, I'll use it since Belichick's in the news a lot. J.R. Redmond makes the catches. You know, and then there are always those other guys. And God bless Drew Holiday. You're right. I mean, Jeff, he just got old before our eyes. I love him. I will, as a Celtic fan, I will ever cherish what he did. Poor Porzingis. It looked like somebody ripped his lungs out. I mean, he easily could have sat out that game. The guy just couldn't run. So I cannot be angry at any of this. But Brad needs to start the rebuild. And actually, if I can try to put a positive spin on it, with Tatum being out, okay, and I don't want him out, it's kind of an opportune time to say, look, we need to retool here. And they're not going to win the championship without Tatum. So it's a perfect time to start adjusting the roster. And I think that Brad Stevens has already started. Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, you look at, all right, let's look at the contracts first. Let's look at the contracts.
Now let's get into the facts, Gary. Let's see what we can actually do.
Well, that's the part, right? I mean, Drew Holiday's still got 2 years at $32 and $35 million. Okay, not going to be an easy contract to move right now. No. You know, you got to find a younger team that needs a veteran presence. There'll be one out there, but there aren't going to be many out there. That's all I'll say. Porzingis has 1 year left at almost $31 million. That should be easy. Like, to me, it's almost like you might have to go back in with him next year, show that he's healthy, and then move him. That might have to be the deal you make. You might have to play him till the trade deadline and move him at that point. Jaylen Brown's making big money here. I mean, he's got the highest paid contract in the NBA right now. Tatum's kicks in next year. Is the highest paid. Derek White, you have to keep. Like, are we do we all agree here? Like, you have to keep Derek White. He's got 3 more years, 28, 30, 33 million. That's a bargain right now. I know he didn't play well last night, but, you know, I guess the only thing you could say is if you want to tank, you trade Derek White. But the best scenario for them long term is losing every game next year. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying they're going to lose every game, but the best case scenario is they end up maybe having another injury, nothing major, and being towards the bottom. Because, guys, next year's draft class, the top of it is really good. There's a kid named A.J. DeBonsa, who we all know from Brockton, Mass., who's going to BYU, who's 6'9", super athletic, high ceiling. There's a kid named Darren Peterson Jr., 6'5", combo guard. I think he might be better than A.J., and he's going to Kansas next year. Cameron Boozer is like an Alonzo Mourning type of guy, a little bit different, but 6'10", will be a double-double machine at Duke next year. A kid named Nate Ament, who's going to Tennessee, 6'9", 6'10", Kevin Durant type of player, long, skilled, not as tall as KD. All I'm trying to say here is next year's draft isn't going to be one guy, Cooper Flag. It's going to be more than that. So you're not tanking for one guy. And again, I'm not saying that the Celtics should tank yet. I'm saying if this thing goes poorly here and Jaylen Brown and Derek White, because I do believe like those guys, what else are you going to bring in if you want to be under the tax? You've got $55 million in dead weight right now, dead money with Jason Tatum next season. So you can't replace that. How good can you be if you've got Jaylen Brown, right, Derek White, Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard? Like, what else are you adding here? What else are you really going to add?
All right, we'll get back to the guys in a minute. Prizepicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. All right, so we know that, hey, the Celtics are done, but you can cash in on the basketball playoffs with Prizepicks. Don't miss your chance to add favorite players from the court to your Prizepicks lineup, whether it's points, rebounds, assists. Take your pick, more or less, for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Every Tuesday, Prizepicks will discount several projections on the board, usually by 15 to 25%. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So it's how, listen, Brunson, is he going to get 25 points, more or less? More or less, 25 points. I'm going more with that guy every time, but that's how it works. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game.
I agree, and I'm just thinking, running through my head, we got to get the fans calmed down, and there's a phrase that I hate that we've got to get out of their mind, and that's championship driven. Okay, that's this nonsense. To me, I've always hated it. That's just inherent. You want to win the championship, but let's be realistic. We're a long way. It's no longer an issue here. It is no longer an issue. And with this group, we've gone through this, like the fifth incarnation of Celtic greatness, starting in '57. All right, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is the fifth group, that's one separate group that's won a championship. Okay, we've had, and that's over. OVER, over. It was open. It was possible when we started a month ago, and it's no longer possible. So that's that. So let's get that out of people's heads, calm them down, and explain the situation. I hope they were able to convey the message, that we all agree they need to convey. Question, rhetorical almost: is it fair or unfair to expect any more out of Messrs. Pritchard and Hauser? They are who they are in the roles that they have. They can't be expected to, quote, step up. Right? I mean, that's my feeling. Do you agree to that?
That's correct. That is 100% correct. Like, Pritchard could average more points on a non-playoff team, right? Like, you could put him out there next year on a team and say, hey, you're going to get 35 minutes, and he's going to average 14 points a game, and maybe that should be done, and then you can maybe move him. But I don't think you're going to get, like, big value for Peyton Pritchard at any point. I think his best role and Hauser's best role are coming off the bench, and you got to find, do you have anything here in Baylor Shireman?
Yeah,
you play him next year and see what you have. I like him, but get back to what we talked about before. Like, Jaylen Brown's got his dream now. in a way. He's got his dream. His dream is, I think always has been, to be the number one guy. All right, now we may end up seeing what you can do as the number one guy. It didn't look pretty in Game 6, and I don't think it's going to look pretty again. I think, again, he'll put up numbers, but he'll be largely inefficient, and watching teams double team both he and or Derek White is going to make life so much harder. They're not going to realize how much of an impact Jason Tatum just being on the court had for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, we all know the sports radio foolishness, but I had to shut it off when I heard, one thought about, geez, maybe they're going to be better without Tatum because Tatum's not hogging the ball. And I'm like, shut up. Shut up. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. And the question I have is, and I'll start with you, Bob, and then go to Jeff, for Jaylen Brown, who we all think the world of, but I mean, he's not Jason Tatum. Does this impact his trade value?
I've always wondered what the rest of the league thinks of him. We don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't think the three of us know. I don't know who knows. I don't know if Brad knows. He may have to find out. But I don't know what other people think of him at all. We do know that, he's got the cachet of that MVP, and finals last year. That's fine. But I don't know what other GMs and coaches and even players think of him. So that's a very good. We don't know. We know we know who his biggest fan is. It's Jaylen Brown. Okay, and that's and he's a driven athlete, and that's fine. He's accomplished a great deal in his career. If he retired on the spot today, he could point to I was a success in the NBA. Not to mention I got a lot of money. So no, I don't know what they think.
That contract also plays into it, right?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Like he's probably, I think we would all agree, he's probably a 15 to 30 player in the NBA.
15. Am I making a trade for the Celtics? Am I making this is talk show stuff. If I make a deal, am I trading for Jaylen Brown, Jeff, with that salary? Probably. That's a lot, man.
Probably not. Probably not.
So you can't move him. If you want to move him, you probably can. And I'm not saying
What about? I'll give you this. What about like a place like a Houston, where Ime coached him before? Maybe he helped turn around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. He knows them well. I would assume Jaylen respects the hell out of Ime because he really did help his career significantly. And oh, by the way, Houston's got a bunch of young players. A Jalen Green being one of them. Yeah. Would you be interested in some of those young guys? You'd have to find, obviously, financially, you got to find the fit here to match. But all I'm saying is, I do think there are going to be certain places that Jaylen Brown could fit. Now, again, Houston's got to love Jaylen Brown enough. They got to think he could be a number one-ish guy, which he's shown he's capable of being Robin. I don't think he can ever be Batman without a really, really, really strong. Who, I would sort of compare him to, not quite at this level, but because this guy can go for 40 any night, is Donovan Mitchell. I think they're similar in a sense that I don't think either are good enough as number one guys to lead their team to the promised land. I think they can lead you, win a playoff series. And I tweeted that last night. I think, if all goes right next year, Brad Stevens could put together a team that wins a playoff series with Jaylen Brown and Derek White being co-number ones, right? Both of them being kind of equal in a way, because I think that's what it would have to be. But I think that's your highest upside. And then you're drafting what? 15, 18? Instead of trying to suck or hoping that you have an injury that affords you the luxury of sucking and being in the mix for one of those top 4 or 5 guys.
Let's talk about the opponents for a minute. I think we need to give them their due. I think that this is not just a matter of the Celtics didn't live up to their expectations. They were challenged, and the Knicks, I think, entered this series with the great doubts on the part of their fandom. Their history over a quarter century and longer. Remember, the Knicks last won the championship. How old you have to be to have lived through and experienced what it was like when the Knicks were the toast of the world the first time? Well, you have to be in your 60s.
I was young.
You got to be in your 60s, okay?
Right. Yeah, I wasn't even alive. That's right. I wasn't even alive.
Late 50s. The 1973 was their last championship. They won 2 times in 3 years, all right? 4 years. Okay. So this is a big experience for the Knicks and their fans. But this team, they entered it with they had stuff to prove. Even last night, I thought, frankly, that this was the house money game for the Celtics, and the Knicks still had to prove something. Well, they did. Period. They did. All right. I want to examine I think if I'm a Knicks fan, what I'm feeling really good about is that this wasn't about Brunson. This was not just about Brunson, as so much of their recent success has been. We talked about Towns earlier. He was a different guy. If this is the guy they're going to get, look out, world, because we know he can shoot. He made the most amazing shot of the whole playoffs, in my opinion, in that first series when he shot that ball from Caitlin Clark land and the end of the game and it went in. Anyway, that's a more. They just had something that is very rare. I can't say I know it's not unprecedented, but it's very rare. They just had 2 playoff games in this series with 4 guys having 20. All right, that is not normal. That is very good. In game 4, Bridges 23, Anunoby 20, Towns 23, Brunson 39. Last night, Bridges 22, Anunoby 23, Towns 21, Brunson 23. That is very rare, 420s.
Well, but it also, Bob, I want to interject here just because of what you're saying. It is very rare, but that was also a typical box score of the Celtics last year. Because one of the things I looked up, one of the playoff games last year against Dallas, one of the finals, they had 6 guys in double figures. Oh yeah, no, of course they did, and that was last year. You're right. But anyway, the Knicks. So the Knicks are stealing the Celtics game, I guess, is kind of what.
And one other thing, McBride has suddenly come alive.
Right.
For them as a bench, and that because the whole thing with them was they had no bench.
Bob's right. The Knicks have their version of Hauser, and
well, they do now. And if you remember opening night when the Celtics buried the Knicks, and to the joy, to the joy of the crowd, the one Knick that kept them in the game for a while was McBride. And then he did not build on that all year. He did not have the year people thought he was going to have. Well, if he's going to be the McBride they've seen the last couple of games, it's really a big boost going forward for them. So all I'm getting at is they deserve their credit. We should give them their credit for what they've done. Yeah. And now that so now we get to the next thing. Knicks in Indiana. Any general thoughts, Jeff?
Can we go? I just want to mention one or two quick things before we move it forward. The deals. And I was critical of the hire of Leon Rose. Leon Rose is the GM of the Knicks, former agent. The moves he made. Now, obviously signing Brunson to that initial deal, right? Imagine if Dallas still had him. They signed him to a 4-year, $104 million contract. We all thought it was, maybe a little bit, they were overpaying. At this point, we can all agree that was like a steal. And then the trade they made right before training camp this year. Yes. Help both teams. Both teams are still alive, by the way. Julius Randle, basically, for Karl Anthony Towns. And we kind of were like, what the hell is Minnesota thinking at this point? And we didn't think that this would put the Knicks over the top. Well, it's helped both organizations. Kind of DiVincenzo also going. Remember, they traded Dante and Randle and a future first-round pick to Minnesota for Karl Anthony Towns. So that's worked as well.
I totally agree. I've been pointing this out recently. The whole team is my mother, except with the exception of Mitchell Robinson. 1 draft pick matters. 1 draft pick plays for them. That's it. By the way, Mitchell Robinson's contributions combined with Towns, we got to give him, he was an unsung hero in this series. Well, once we got beyond the nonsense of Hack a Mitch, but that they have something going for them. Okay, the point I'm getting at, as my mother would have said, this is a store-bought team. It's not, and right. All great moves. Every one of these guys was the result of Leon Rose making a sagacious trade. Every one of them, or free agent pickup in the case of McBride, I believe. But trades for Brunson, trade for Towns, trade for Bridges, trade for Anunoby. This is he deserves
and a great hire. Hey, Bob, a hell of a hire in one, Rick Brunson.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. Yes. Good story, and we have a good story today about going back to Rick Brunson at Salem High and his exploits, and and Tibbs at Salem State. And good story. I recommend it, folks. Get a Globe today and check out the background of Jaylen's father. Anyway, so yeah,
Indiana.
Leon Rose gets the Ryan Goodman tanguay seal of approval for the job he's done to assemble this team. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the Pacers Knicks series is going to be fun. I mean, I don't know how much fans in Boston are going to be paying attention.
No,
they may be like, we're done with the playoffs now that our team is out. But I'll tell you what, these are two teams that they're fun to watch. I know a lot of the players on both sides, and you're talking about like high character, tough, hard nosed. I mean, Miles Turner's come a long way. Halliburton gets crucified a couple weeks ago. They do a poll of who's the most overrated player in the NBA, and it's Halliburton. And then he goes out there and literally wins them the series with like as clutch a player can be in the postseason. TJ McConnell, I think I've told this story. When he graduated from Arizona, he called me and he was like, do you think I'm good enough to play in the NBA? And, he's pretty damn good. He's pretty damn good coming off the bench, spelling, whether it's Halliburton or Nembhard.
He is the guy, Jeff, that I hoped, past tense, Pritchard could be. That level of contribution, because they're the same size basically. They're both coming off the bench, and but of course Pritchard turned out to be even more than But let's not dismiss McConnell. Still is a very good bench player. But that's who I hope Pritchard could be, and it turned out he has. He's reached that level, and that's very, very good. And of course I'm going to root for them because of Carlisle. Okay. I got a personal interest in this. I'll be honest. So no objectivity here.
I want to interject.
I'm rooting openly for Indiana.
Well, I want to interject here to bring up who are the two coaches in this series.
Former Celtic assistants, former Celtic. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that, and I know in the NBA, it's all about the players, and I get that. But I do think that Carlisle and Tibbs deserve a ton of credit. I'm happy for Tibbs. Look, I know they got New York on the shirt. I'm not thrilled about that. But if you take away the New York thing, how can you not like either team? Like if you're a basketball fan, how can you not like either team? I love Rick Carlisle, went to the University of Maine, my alma mater, for 2 years. I always throw that in there.
Yeah.
And then how can you not like Tibbs? I mean, I remember Johnny Joe used to go like, Tibbs is in the film room 24 hours a day. Like if Tibbs comes out, the sun will burn him. I mean, how can you not like both of these coaches? And I'll let you guys talk about both coaches. I think they deserve their due.
No, they're very good at what they do. Tibbs is known. And the funny thing is, he's like the Bob Knight on a low level, and that it turns out as a player, he was absolutely an all offense, no defense player, and he's turned out to be Mr. Defense, which is exactly what Knight was at Indiana, at Ohio State. Yeah. He was a complete offensively oriented player who didn't play defense, and he turned out to be Bob Knight. Anyway, no, this is a nice little subplot if you're really into it, for as a Boston fan, and how many people are, we'll see. But anyway, you're right. But I said Rick, I don't believe Rick was ever a Celtic assistant, but we know he's a Celtic player, and he's been we know that. But I mean, I go back remembering him. The young guy that came in and played piano by ear. Used to go everywhere and play the piano in the lounges, anyway, I remember he was an old rookie, because of the fact that he was he was a post grad at Worcester Academy after we got out of high school. Then he went to Maine, and then he transferred, and he had to sit out a year. So he was a 24 going on 25-year-old rookie. Wow. And I remember at the time talking about how he was older than Drew Bledsoe, who was the quarterback at the time. I remember that comparison. But anyway, like Rick, you got to like Rick. To know Rick is to like him. And Tibbs is so, yeah, this is,
And they have the right groups for them. I mean, because they're two old school guys who aren't going to give much, right? So they need the right guys for them. And, we'll start with the Knicks, obviously, like Jalen Brunson, and like he fits Tibbs to a T. And all those guys, because they were at Villanova, I would say this, they were like robots. They were like robots. If you ever watched Villanova in pregame, right before the game started, it was amazing. Like, There were no headphones on or anything like that. They were doing drills in unison, no bullshitting, no nothing. And then after games, like they would just say exactly what they should say. Never get in trouble,
right?
Not smiling, nothing. And I would joke with Jaylen on that all the time. Like after they graduated, I'm like, dude, like I didn't know you guys had any personality. Like I never understood it because Jay Wright has so much personality.
Oh, Jay Wright is one of the great people.
I never got it, but that's how they that's how the people before them, the players before them were. So that's how they were. But man, this group's got personality. You could see it, right? The Josh Harts and Jalen Brunson's got personality. They do a podcast. They rip on each other all the time. They have fun. And the Pacers. Again, I think Carlisle's got the right group with them. I mean, these guys are, tough. I don't want to say no nonsense, but like Siakam and Halliburton and Miles Turner, they're high character. Nembhard and McConnell, and a lot of them are really high character guys. That and a guy that the Celtics had has turned out to be pretty good is Aaron Nesmith.
I'm happy for him. Excuse me. I remember being so excited that draft that they got him, because he was the best shooter in the draft, and everybody knew it. And it didn't work out here, but I'm glad it's working out for him. Before we, if we're done with this, I want to put on my historian's hat when you're ready. Okay, you ready now? Okay. I was thinking, of course, this catastrophic loss, 38 points on a clinching game, is statistically the worst clinching game loss in Celtic history. We can argue one of the most embarrassing, horrible losses of all in Celtic history. Okay, no argument there. I want to go back to the previous number one candidate in terms of the playoffs. 1967, the Celtics played the 76ers. And in the first round, first of all, they beat the Knicks 3-1, and Philadelphia beat Cincinnati 3-1. So that's how they advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. And Philadelphia won 68 games that year. They were a great team. And but the Celtics were the defending champion, and of course the defending champion and the defending champion and the defending champion. They had won 8 straight. Okay, so we get to game 4, and the Celtics stay alive. They beat Philadelphia 121-117. So now it's game 5 in Philadelphia, and they're champion. It's on the line. This is it. Final score: Philadelphia 140, Boston 116. And in the third quarter of that game, Wally Jones went 8 for 9 with that corkscrew jump shot of his and put the game away. Wilt Chamberlain, you ready for this, folks? Sitting down, folks? 29 points, 36 rebounds, and 13 assists. Okay. So the Celtics are left in shambles at that game. What happens the next year? This is why I'm going to bring this up. They make no personnel changes. None that mattered. They make no change, okay? They come back, and of course, we all know they won. They beat Philadelphia. Philadelphia, meanwhile, made one personnel change. They added Johnny Green, jumping Johnny Green during the season. And that was it. So basically, the same groups plus addition to Johnny Green come back at 68. We all know the Celtics were down 3-1. No team at that point had ever come back from 3-1. That was unprecedented in the NBA at that time. And they did come back and pull it out and win, and the famous game 7 when Wilt took 2 shots in the second half for reasons only known to Wilt, So the Celtics won. Anyway, but I just want to stress is how the times have changed. You didn't have to worry about the financial situations. There was no first apron, let alone second apron, right?
Or no aprons.
None of that crap. You just paid guys $30,000, and if you're good players, maybe 50, and they all went home and got their jobs in the off season. No, folks, I'm not making this up. Okay. So they make 0 personnel changes, come back and win the championship. That's how different the world was then. All right. Okay. I'm done.
Moving on to, well done, Professor Ryan, as always. Moving on to OKC and Denver. So at the time that we're talking on this podcast, people are going to be watching it after the game is over. So I'll pose the question this way, and Jeff, I'll start with you. Does the champion come out of this series? Because at the time of recording this, Game 7 is hours away. Does the champ come out of this series?
I believe it does. I believe, Oklahoma City is that one team that again, still has looked pretty darn good, and they're healthy. That's what I'll say. That's the biggest difference for me for OKC and the other number one seeds that have bowed out is they are healthy. And, Denver's still got the Joker. So I think whoever wins this series is the favorite against whether it's New York or Indiana.
I can't read this series, guys. I cannot read it. I watched it. I'm living through it. I'm looking, staring once again at the numbers, and I just can't read it. I don't see I can get a read on it at all. So Game 7, it's in Oklahoma. I'll just say I'll go with the home team, even though we know it's a year where the road teams have had extraordinary success in the playoffs, unprecedented levels, I'm sure. But still, I'm going to go with the home team. I don't trust Denver as much as I would trust OKC.
Right.
Therefore, I'm not going to categorically say if they win, I still wouldn't pick them necessarily over either New York or Indiana, but I would pick OKC. If they win, yes, I go with OKC categorically. But if Denver wins, even though they just beat OKC, I just can't bring myself to believe in them the way I would believe in OKC against the Eastern Conference champion, whoever it may be. And the funny thing about the Joker, just when people were saying he looks tired, he looks worn out, he looks, he's dragging himself up and down the floor, blah, blah, and then he gets 45, And I mean, he's a phenomenon beyond belief. So I just trust OKC. I'm with Jeff. I trust OKC. They are healthy a little bit more. And but it's a hard series to read, boy. I mean, I think if they went 100, it might be 50, 50.
Right.
So, anyway, there you go.
What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going OKC. To me, again, I just think.
Yeah, I think I just asked you that. I totally blanked for him.
Yep, you're good.
Gentlemen, do we have any final thoughts?
No,
my only final thought is a general thing about when you have a good team, folks, enjoy the moment every day. Don't project too far. We learned, what a difference, I could go into Dinah Washington, what a difference a day makes, what a difference one lousy play makes. And this is one of the most impactful plays in the history of the Boston Celtics because of the long-range ramifications that far transcend losing this series. That's the thing. This injury to Tatum that will maybe how much it's going to cost him next year? We could be the whole season, could be 3/4 of it. We don't know. But this is why just enjoy when you have a good team, enjoy the moment. I'm preaching this in all sports. And don't go too far ahead, and don't get sucked in with propaganda about championship-driven nonsense. Enjoy the game, every one of them as they come up, when you have a good team. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel bad. I'll close with this. I feel bad for obviously Jason Tatum because he's going to lose a year of his prime.
Oh, and 27's peak prime.
Right. And we don't know how he's going to. And the other thing is that game, man, I've seen a lot of Jason Tatum games in person on TV since he was a kid. And I'll say this, that was about as good of an all-around game as I've seen Jason Tatum play on both ends of the court, especially defensively. So I'm just sad for him that he's going to lose a whole year, and who knows how he comes back from an Achilles. You'd like to think KD did it and came back pretty well. Certainly, he missed a lot of time though. What he missed a
whole year
plus. Yeah,
the whole year.
He's done for a year. Right. I mean, listen, he's out. If you're the Celtics, you're done for a year. You want to play? You want to come back?
Zero chance.
Not happening.
Zero chance you play next year.
None.
Right, because you're risking then his career, and to me, you just call it a day. We're done. We're going to prepare he's done next season. And hope he comes back in 2 years and it takes, they say, it takes a while, even when he comes back, whether he'll be back to what he was. The good thing, guys, here's the good thing with Jason Tatum is he's so skilled. He doesn't have the frame of Kevin Durant anymore, right? He had that 5 years ago. Now he's gotten big and strong, but he is not so reliant on athleticism. He is a skilled player. So Will he be what he was? I don't know. But I think he'll be pretty damn close to it at some point in the next 2 or 3 years. The question is, what does that team look like at that point?
Right. Gents, always a pleasure. Down the road, we will be talking about the future of the Celtics. I do want to get in to the three-point shot. I think there's some misinformation about that. We'll talk about that next week, and we'll also cover the playoffs. So you've been watching the Bob Ryan, Jeff Goodman, Tanguay Along for the Ride podcast, part of the proud member of the CLNS Media Network. The show is brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. Prizepicks, run your game. Gents, we'll see ya.